T-Dog, J-Boy, and me, I'm Lugs. Our pride and joy is pumping our mugs. Be careful, kids, it could get rough. We're flipping our lids on sports and other stuff.
Welcome to Sport Weasel Central. I'm Lugs.
I'm J-Boy.
And I'm T-Dog.
Yes, sir. Fellas, this was actually in my church bulletin. You ready? The Low Self-Esteem Support Group will meet Thursday at 7 o'clock. Please use the back door. All right, we'll never use that one again. It's not too late to leave now. This is sports and other stuff. Big surprises in the NBA Conference Finals this week. We'll talk about that. Can the Nuggets be stopped? We're remembering NFL great Jim Brown. Plus, there's ESPN and Preakness news. And I think Bob Baffert got a haircut. All right, good to see you, boys. NFL great and pioneer Jim Brown dies at age 87. Regarded by many, perhaps, as the greatest running back of all time, but maybe better known to some as an actor and civil rights activist and the first black superstar of the NFL. Lugs. I'll never forget his performance in the 1966 classic Dirty Dozen. What'd you think of that? Had an all-star cast.
Oh, I'm telling you. Lee Marvin. From that era, it was even had Trini Lopez.
Yep.
Who sang Lemon Tree Song and all kinds of sort of folky
Lemon Tree,
songs.
very pretty, and the whatever. Yep.
Yeah. But, yes, he is the greatest running back of all time. He was a man when basically the defensive line and linebackers, a big defensive lineman in his era would have been 215, maybe 220, and he was 235. He just hammered people. So right off the top, I know that he led the NFL 8 of his 9 years. He only played 9 years, by the way.
Yeah. And
just racked up just crazy numbers. You got any of those numbers there, dog?
Yeah, for his career, he averaged 104.3 rushing yards per game.
Crazy.
I believe there's no one else in the NFL. I don't know what I'd say the cutoff is, but I'm pretty sure no other running back has averaged 100 plus yards from the line of scrimmage. I think there's some that are just below that, but still, he averaged 5.2 yards per carry, which is pretty special. I think maybe Jamal Charles also is at that line, but again, very rare for a person to have as long a career as he has to have 5 yards per carry. Of those 9 years that Lugs brought up, he was an All-Pro 8 times. And, a lot of Hall of Famers, there may be a 3-time Pro Bowler for like a 15-year season, which is still considered great. So like of his 9, he was an 8-time All-Pro. And, he won the NFL championship in 1964. He was the 3-time AP MVP of the league. The thing that makes it more fascinating is 2 of them came in his first 2 years in the league. And kind of like J-Boy brought off the top is he was also an activist in 1988. He started America I Can, a program that helps teach life skills to troubled youth in Los Angeles and Cleveland, and probably what he's most famous for in terms of his activist. I'm not saying it's maybe his biggest contribution, but still, in June 4th, 1967, Brown led the Cleveland Summit to help support Ali's unwillingness to go to Vietnam. And he brought together Lou Alcindor at the time before it became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell. He was a very proactive in helping the betterment of black athletes in throughout history. So Jim Brown is again, my dad always talks about Jim Brown. He grew up a Bears fan and a Browns fan, and he was only pretty much a Browns fan because of Jim Brown. And the other funny thing I know about Jim Brown, because obviously I wasn't alive for when he was running, is one of the best running backs when I was a kid was Barry Sanders. And as you probably all know, like his dad was famous for being, they had asked, like, what do you think of your son being the greatest running back of all time? And his dad would be like, well, Jim Brown's the best running back of all time. I mean, my son's good, but so
Jeez, got dissed by
And
his own.
Barry, retired early as well.
yes.
Got out before, the injuries racked up. But he wasn't anywhere near as big as Jim Brown. But
No.
he was smart and could cut. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah, they're both greats. Maybe
Well,
I'd put Barry number 2.
And you think about the era, right? 1957, you could get 3 TV stations, maybe, depending on where you live. And when football came on during the day on Sunday afternoons, and here's this guy, this Flash, who's getting over 100 yards a game, and there's Lindsey Nelson, Kurt Gowdy, those guys calling those games. I mean, it had to be exciting. It was a low-end production with like 3 or 4 cameras, but still, I mean, it had to put the NFL totally on the map in the eyes and households across the country.
I mean, he was physically on a different level in football. Think about this. He is one of the rare athletes to be in 2 Hall of Fames. He's also in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame for how dominant he was at Syracuse. Can you imagine him on a lacrosse field? Good Lord.
Oh, that ball would be coming at you. I mean, you'd just be whack. That'd be it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch Dirty Dozen tonight. I remember him dropping those mortars down those tubes or some scene. And you're right, Lee Marvin and an all-star cast. Just an excellent movie. And he maybe had no dialogue at all in the whole film, too, by the way.
I was going to ask you, maybe outside of Dirty Dozen, what do you all consider the best Jim Brown movie?
Well, he did several of those blaxploitation movies. He played detectives and stuff. I really can't name any that
Me too.
I'm sorry.
I'm with you. I'm lost on that. I'd have to go to his filmography, maybe.
I don't need to go to his filmography. I'll just say
You got some?
where it was smaller roles. It was smaller roles. One was a spoof of those black exploitation. It was the young Wayne's Family, one of their first spoof movies they did. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. He was great in that. And the other one, the movie is an absolute mess. And as much as we've all watched football, it's fun to watch any given Sunday because it feels like Oliver Stone has never watched a football game before when you watch it cut up. So it's fun to watch that movie just for that. But he has some great scenes in it. So Jim Brown, may you rest in peace.
Amen. And to live till 87 years old in this era of the NFL in the early days when they were getting hammered pretty good, that says a lot, too, about his prowess, his physicality, and just his overall shape. So you're absolutely right. Rest in peace. All right, let's move on to the other end, the NBA. The conference finals are underway, but really they're just about over. Surprises on both sides. T-Dog, the Nuggets, what's up with that? And is this the swan song? What's happening? What is happening?
I guess, yeah, since it's the one that actually is wrapped up, I guess to look at the two sides of the coin. First, let's go to the victor. Regardless if the Heat are probably definitely going to win this series. I know the Celtics staved it off for one game, but like the Heat, they've run through some of these underperforming or teams that for whatever reason just aren't clicking. I don't think they're going to have as easy a time as they've had in the East when they placed the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets, it starts with Jokic. I mean, for a guy who's 6'11", he's such an exceptional passer, and just the way he can shoot from the perimeter. And then they have Murray, who, to be fair to Jamal Murray hasn't been kind of right. He essentially missed the playoffs 2 years ago and wasn't right last year. Now he seems like he's back to being who he is, and is as a true number 2 scorer, and it's sometimes better than that, with particularly how he's played in this postseason. And then you have Aaron Gordon, who's just a rim runner and just gives you energy. And then to round out the starting 5, Caldwell Pope and Porter just give you 2 quality perimeter shooters. And their bench is pretty solid too. So I don't see how they get stopped. I feel like it's now inevitable that they're going to win. And on the other side, I just look at the Lakers. I mean, you got to give credit to LeBron, Anthony Davis. They were able to take this lower seed, and I believe LeBron had like a messed up foot, and he was able to help, get him this far as he did. But you just look at it. One of their best players, Austin Reeves. I mean, he played so well this postseason. He's going to get a big contract. I don't know if they're going to be able to afford him, but they definitely need either a point guard like Fred VanVleet, I believe, will be a free agent from Toronto. They need to get a guy who can score and be a playmaker, or maybe at shooting guard if they can't re-sign Austin Reeves. They need to try to get Gary Trent Jr., because that'll give them a third scorer just to take pressure off of James and Davis if they want to try to really run this back.
Well, now, I favor the idea of the crazy idea of LeBron James going to Golden State, and Golden State would give up Poole, Kuminga, Moody, maybe somebody else. LeBron doesn't want to shoot threes. He's the greatest driver of all time. Steph Curry could shoot threes. It would help both teams. It really would. So I heard that rumor, and I was like, I would actually pay that $600,000 fee to get into that NBA game, because that it will sell out everywhere. I mean, they got to do it. I think they got to do it, and it would give LeBron a shot again at a championship, and it would be a fourth championship, or championship with four teams.
Yep.
Right? So
correct.
He'd be at 5 with the championship with Golden State. But you're right. Four with four teams. Actually, do you know, as a starter, I'm sure there's a guy who's won 4 championships with 4 different teams. But do you know, Lugs, is there any guy who's been like a top quality starter who's done that? I don't think anyone has.
No,
right?
just reserves come to mind.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Lugs, you always come up with these hot takes, LeBron going to Golden State and trading all these guys. Okay, but here's a question I have. So will LeBron live to see the day, well, in air quotes, be in the league when Bronny comes along, his son, after he does whatever he's going to do for however long at USC? You think that'll happen, or is LeBron too far gone?
No, I think LeBron is still in an amazing shape. And even with the foot injury and all the other things that he's dealing with, he was still, scoring 24 points, getting rebounds. He didn't have as many assists because he was trying a lot of three-pointers. So, no, I think obviously he wants to play with his son. But if Golden State could do a 1-year deal with him, or a 2-year deal. Because, Golden State now knows Steph Curry's maybe 2 years from hanging it up. I think Steph's smart enough to realize he doesn't want to take that beating anymore. So, anyway, that's just sort of my wishful thinking, because you talk about ratings. That would get ratings.
I will at least... Why I like this crazy theory is, like, I think the big thing with LeBron, with any like older players, it's not that he can't play still at a high level. It's just like what he did in the closeout game 4. Like, he just doesn't have the energy to do it for a full game. I believe he only missed like 40 seconds of that whole game, which sounds great, but it really wasn't, because in the first half, he had enough energy that he scored 21 points in the first quarter. He scored 10 points in the second quarter. So he had 31 points at halftime. And then once the game got tight and the Nuggets were able to really get back into the game in the third quarter, in the crucial quarter, the fourth quarter, LeBron only scored 3 points. Like, he just ran out.
Yeah.
And if he goes to Golden State, to be fair to Lugs' point, if he goes to Golden State, I think he has enough people around him that it takes the scoring burden off him, so that hopefully he can keep his minutes down. And like I said, because I agree with Lugs, I still think he can play. I just think him playing like 40-plus minutes a game in the playoffs, I know it's hard to like keep your rotation extended. Usually it gets cut down to like 9 or 8 players, but like he needs to only play like 35, even in playoff games at this point. I think to keep him optimal level LeBron. I think
So he's not the lead sled dog anymore.
No,
no,
I don't think so.
But the thing about LeBron is, I don't think most people realize how much weight that man carries. That when you think about it, I looked at him. I mean, he's carrying, what do you think, 240 at least? And think about it. I mean, he's sprinting. It's crazy. I think that's why he shot so many threes this year, was he didn't want to have to run the full court. Yeah. If he shot the three, he's already a quarter of the way back to the other end if he misses. But, so that was my crazy
hot take,
wishful moment. Yeah.
Hot take. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So what about the finals that we'll assume will be the Miami Heat? T-Dog, what do you think?
I mean, I know they staved it off for at least one game.
An
but
eight seed.
I just want to give credit to two people. I'm not saying it goes beyond these two people, but obviously Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra. Jimmy Butler is averaging just under 30 points a game, 6.7 rebounds and 2.2 steals during this playoff run. And, in game 2, where it was tight, he scored 9 points in the fourth quarter to win that game. And just on the other side, I just want to give Spoelstra credit for like some of these guys, because they had so many guys. Obviously Hero is out. I mean, obviously Oladipo of old isn't Oladipo old, but just as a quality bench player, he could have helped out. Like he's injured. So, he's getting these guys like Gabe Vincent. He had 29 points in game 3. Caleb Martin in game 1, 2, and 3, he scored 15, 25, and 18. And then Duncan Robinson has scored 15 and 22 off the bench. Just getting all these random guys like open or, just confident in the way they're playing. Like these guys are like stepping up and being like key contributors. When you really look at the roster, like in terms of players, like you look at Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and then really after that, it feels like just a bunch of guys. But like I said, I just want to give credit. So.
Yeah, I think you have to give a lot of credit to Spoelstra. And what I was trying to think of the Boston. Is it Missoula?
Yeah, Missoula.
I think they did him a disservice because he was an assistant. He's never been a head coach. And to be made a head coach of that franchise, that's just tough. That's tough. I don't know that you'll see him after this season, honestly.
So if you have a Nugget Heat final, Lugs, who do you like?
Oh, you got to go with the Nuggets.
Yeah, odds on.
I was going to say also for the Heat, Bam Adebayo. He's had himself a good, former Kentucky dude, and so is Hero. But I would have to go with the Nuggets just because of Jokic. You watch. I had not seen him play. I'll be honest here. I've watched these playoff games. He's amazing at being able to pick up the open shooter. And he can get his own shot too. But, he just passes it around. I mean, he's on a maturity level way beyond his years in the league. I think just because European players, they start at like 15 and 16, and that's all they do. They don't go to high school. They go to basketball camp with 25-year-old men. And so I think they just come in far more prepared and far more mature than, say, like a Ja Morant, who is a crazy gifted athlete, but needs to mature some.
Yep.
Jokic, you can tell he's there to win and just figure out he's very smart. So I would have to go with the Nuggets.
What about you, T-Dog? Nuggets Heat final? What do you like?
Yeah, Nuggets. It has to be them, just because again, like what Lug said, just mainly it goes beyond Jamal Murray and Jokic, but just to kind of also hit on the Jokic thing. I mean, in a closeout game, just, to make sure they can get some extra rest. Jokic scored 30 points, 14 rebounds, had 13 assists. Again, that goes to just how, for a guy his size, like just the way he can create open shots. And like I said, with Porter and Caldwell Pope, with the way they're shooting from the perimeter, like the way he can find them and for them to stop and pop, or also Murray from the perimeter too. Like they just have so many options around him that they can spread the court, and then that's when they can shred. And also he's just so good on the pick and roll with Murray at the top, and also Brown has been playing well with them, one of their key backups. And, again, what you want for, like, going back to Jimmy Butler talking about Jokic in this game, he had 7 points in the fourth quarter in the closeout game. And one of them was that step back three that was absolutely stupid, where he was falling backwards before the shot clock expired. And he just kind of just chucked it up there, and it just went all in. It would just hit net. And then he had a layup, and that like right after that, and that was the big difference in the game. They won 113 to 111, I believe. So I just think them, and just kind of to echo one of the points that Lugs made earlier. I also feel bad for Joe Mazzulla. I think he's gone whenever this run ends for the Celtics, and he was put in a bad spot just because this was a team that was in the title game last year, and it was just because of the weird situation with their last coach getting essentially let go because of improper relationship, and then he got suspended. And like we talked about last week, Monty Williams is out there, Nick Nurse is out there, Mike Budenholzer's out there. They're going to get a more experienced coach. Some of those guys have rings. Some of those guys have obviously taken their team to the finals. They're going to get that team back on track, because you look at the Boston Celtics roster. I'm not going to put it all on Mazzulla's shoulders, but like this team has drastically underperformed for the amount of talent that they have in this spot. So,
all right.
Yeah, I think Jason Tatum has to have a good, strong coach. And he always has. I mean, he had Krzyzewski. Yeah, I mean, he's always had good coaches around him.
Yeah.
So European superstars. Another one is forecasted to be the number 1 overall pick, Victor Wembanyama, the Frenchman. People are talking about him getting a max contract at the outset, and he's probably going to go to the Spurs, San Antonio. I think that's 100% guarantee. You like that, T-Dog? He's the guy.
Oh, yeah. Like everyone's already said before, of the 3 teams that had the highest percentage to win, I'm happy that he went to the Spurs. The other 2 teams were the Rockets. Look, the Rockets have been bad too many years in a row where they've gotten the first-round pick, and I just don't believe that organization. And Detroit has also had a lot of high picks. So I'd rather a player of this possible like potential to go to a team coached by Popovich. Yeah. I know they haven't made the playoffs the last few years, but like we know in the NBA, your record could be poor. It's not that your coach is bad. It's you just don't have talent. And now they have a transcendent talent in him. And that, you look at his traits, like they've had 2 number 1 overall picks that have worked out pretty well. In 1987, they drafted David Robinson. He'd go on to win 2 titles, 1 MVP. And then a decade later, they drafted Tim Duncan, who would win 5 titles and 2 MVPs. Both those guys Hall of Famers.
I'd say that worked out pretty well. Yeah, no kidding.
And I just, not to put too much pressure on Wembanyama, I'm not going to say he's going to reach some of the lofty goals of maybe what Tim Duncan did, but to think that he's not going to win a title, particularly if they can just add some pieces around him. And I'm not even saying they don't have like some quality guys on the roster now. They just didn't have a number 1 guy. Wembanyama fills that role. Like that's the hardest role to fill. So like they'll have time to develop that roster around him. And I think with Popovich, again, like, we're talking about like Spoelstra and stuff. Like I think Popovich can coach. He just needs the talent. Now he's got the talent. And so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think they need to get themselves a top guard now somewhere. I don't know, maybe go raid the Hawks and take Trey But they need a top guard. They really do.
All right. Let's talk about a little sports of yesteryear. We'll come back and talk about the rest of our program. Lugs, you ready for that situation?
Certainly, we'll get set for that.
All right, let's go with little sports of yesteryear. You take it away anytime you're ready. Here's Lugs.
All right, for this edition of Sports of Yesteryear, 1928, a record 9 future Baseball Hall of Famers take the field as New York Yankees beat Philadelphia A's 9-7 at Shive Park. Now listen to this list. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Tony Lazzeri, Earl Combs, Bill Dickey, Leo DeRocher, Wade Hoyt, Herb Pennock, and Stan Kovaleski. That's a team right there now. And they had Connie Mack as their manager. He also made the Hall of Fame. All right, 1964, sticking with baseball, the longest home run hit in Baltimore Memorial Stadium, 471 feet by Harmon Killebrew of the Minnesota Twins.
Yes,
Harmon, take a bow, brother. 1967, AFL grants a franchise to Cincinnati Bengals.
Whoa.
1987, Indianapolis 500, 47-year-old part-time driver Al Unser Sr. wins his record-tying 4th Indy title in a huge upset. 1992, Indianapolis 500, Al Unser Jr. holds off Scott Goodyear to win by 0.043 seconds, the closest finish in Indy history. And Al became the first second-generation driver to win the Indianapolis 500. Congratulations, boys, all around. That's it for Sports of Yesteryear.
Woo-hoo. Thank you, Lugs. Did you know this? At the Mall of America in the Twin Cities, actually in Bloomington, Minnesota, the road you drive on to get there is Harmon Killebrew Drive. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the big boy. He spanked some home runs back in the day because that mall is built right on the grounds where Municipal Stadium used to sit. All right.
Well.
One more tidbit for you. This week on May 22nd, 1975, the Kentucky Colonels win the ABA championship in 5 games over the Indianapolis Pacers. In the finale, and a friend of the show, I think you remember this guy, Finals MVP Artis Gilmore had 28 points and 31 rebounds, and a sellout crowd, at the time it only held 16,000, at Freedom Hall, Louisville, Kentucky. We miss that team.
Yeah, well, speaking of artists, he was on with a friend of the show, Dan Issel, this week, and they were talking about those old Kentucky Colonel days. Dan was saying that Dan was on the bus and artists would show up in a Rolls Royce. So he got a little better signing bonus, So anyway, hey, what about that boy, old Pat McAfee? Is he the Pinocchio that was created by Geppetto Rogers? I mean, seriously, Pat McAfee was out there in the woods someplace. Yeah, and here he is, and he's going to be the big guy, apparently.
Woo, so. You're right. And here's the thing I don't get. All right, ESPN used to create stars. Name some. Chris Berman.
Oh, yeah.
Now they have to hire these guys because they don't have anybody. They got Greenberg, got Stephen A. Smith, but I don't know about the Pat McAfee talks like this and, yelling and off microphone all the time. Plus, he can't drop all his F-bombs, which is really what that show was all about whenever I listened to it. So, do you think it'll work?
It'll only work if he can continue to get Rogers on, honestly. He's already said, he'll watch the language. He knows that. But I don't know. I have no I've only heard bits and pieces of his podcast and stuff. I guess he had his own YouTube channel, and that lets you know YouTubers can hit the mainstream, but he's getting Well, they're thinking more than 120 million because he had a $120 million contract with FanDuel was his sponsor. So I don't know how all that'll work out. And I guess he'll continue to do. He was doing color, I believe, for college football. So
And
we'll
he dabbles
see.
in wrestling as well. And allegedly his sidekicks, his henchman, A.J. Hawk, former Packer linebacker, he'll be a part of the team as well still. So we wish all the best to Pat McAfee, I guess. And you're right. If Aaron Rodgers comes on, well, then it's a golden deal for Mr. Mack.
And speaking of Rodgers,
Yep.
this week he had himself what they're calling a minor calf injury, but they've gotten him some people to throw to. They're young, and he's doing all the OTAs. He's doing all the things that you would have wanted him to do at Green Bay, but for whatever reason he didn't do in the last couple of years. People have sort of likened it to maybe 8 years ago when Aaron was really, really involved at Green Bay. So, and it shows with the NFL. I mean, they're going to have 5 primetime games this year, which I don't think they had one of that playoff game, maybe that was sort of prime time. But other than that, and they haven't deserved it, honestly. So it'll be interesting to see. And right out of the gate, man, they've got a killer schedule. I don't know. I was looking at it. They could lose 4 of their first 6 fairly easily. But if they can get through that, then afterwards they've got these so-so teams. It'll be interesting, like I said.
If you think about the way the stage is set for this year with Rodgers and the Jets, and you got Carr, and you got Cousins on the last year of his contract. You got Fields, who they expect the world of, and then all the rookies. Could they have come up with a better plan, dialed in any better than this, than to have all these guys? I mean, it's a perfect setting for like drama, big ratings every week for the NFL.
Oh yeah, I mean the marketing of that is just it's fairly easy when you've got stuff to talk about. So. Sometimes, in the business, you have to stretch when you don't have content. But this case with the NFL, they're going to have content every week. I mean, it's going to be. I just saw that they had pictures of. Oh my goodness, the name just escaped me. The Buffalo guy who his heart was stopped.
Oh yeah, Damar Hamlin, he's back, right?
Yep.
He had his first full workout, so it looks like he will be back. So you've got all that intrigue. And to talk about McAfee, I'm not pro McAfee. He doesn't appeal to me, but hey, obviously he does to a large enough audience to where ESPN's ponying up the cash to get him there.
Well, T-Dog had to step out and take a call from Pat just to check in with him. I did. And I pointed this out. McAfee, the F-bomb king, going to get his paycheck. But ESPN used to create stars like Chris Berman and Greenberg and Stephen A. Now they have to hire them. How do you feel about this whole situation, T-Dog?
I find it kind of fascinating because, I think, I obviously, because I had to step out and talk to McAfee.
Yeah, how's he doing?
I didn't hear what you all said. I feel fairly confident in saying that he's not any of our cups of tea. It's not that we
no, don't drink. Him. I don't drink that tea.
I think he's very talented. I do want to say this. I do think he is very talented. He clearly understands an audience, how to find an audience, and he has found an audience, and and he has worked with ESPN before on College Game Day. He's worked with Omaha Productions with Peyton Manning on some of his things. He's worked in the WWE as an announcer and also as an entertainer in the ring. So he knows how to work in different environments. So that does show you his ability to be flexible and adjust. So I think he can work in the ESPN spectrum. But to be fair to what you brought up, the F-bomb, my favorite thing is like how ESPN's like, we want to keep him as he is and stuff. That's just not how the
can't
mouse
happen.
works.
It can't happen.
That's not how the mouse works. Yeah. I know you all aren't fans of Chris Sims at all. The one thing I will give credit to NBC for his podcast and whatnot, they do allow him to cuss because he is just a cusser. That's just a part of who he is. So not when he's on PFT, not when he's on, Sunday Night Football,
right.
But for his venture outside, like specifically, he gets to cuss. So
is McAfee the future of sports talk, sports celebrity, like, Jim Rome over the years, and I guess lately in the past decade, Colin Cowherd? Was he the next guy?
I'm not going to say you all agree with me. At points, I've listened to Jim Rome. I've never been a Cowherd guy. I would much rather listen to McAfee than either of those two guys right
Interesting.
now. I guess the problem I have with McAfee isn't so much McAfee. It's just AJ Hawk. I don't know what the hell AJ Hawk does on that show. AJ Hawk is just
I think he brings the cigars. I think that's what he does.
That's the thing. Is like he's just like a shot over the side who's just smoking cigars. He doesn't contribute anything.
No.
When he has to take over when McAfee is doing something, the train goes off the track, instantaneously. So that's why, like I said, I give credit to McAfee. He does do something. He has the energy. Like I know he is maybe kind of raunchy stuff, but you can see like he understands how to construct stuff. It's just some of the pieces around him I just don't think are on his level, and I just think that's where it kind of and like I said, I don't know how they're going to be able to really readjust it because they have a guy who works for them that came from Bleacher Report and Matt Miller, who is essentially maybe their Mel Kiper in waiting, like 5 or 6 years down the road. He's a scout analyst. He used to do a show with his brother where they did scouted prospects and they drank beers while doing it. He is completely not that anymore. And that, again, this is kind of going back to what we're saying. Like you have to adjust it so much. So even though you're paying 8 figures per year, is what Andrew Marchand, who works for New York Post, has said with this McAfee thing, you're paying for a guy and then you're telling him not to be that guy. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah, but Lugs, we know that raunch sells. And by the way, the guys drinking beer and talking about sports, wasn't that Bob and Doug McKenzie? Hey, take off, eh?
Actually, there is a lot of that.
Take off, eh?
You do hit on something, J-Boy. There is some Bob, like up north.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, you are right about
Back
that.
bacon and all
Great
that.
White North.
Yeah. How's it going, hoser? I mean, I don't know. I don't know about it.
And I will just say this too: is like you're laying off 7,000 people at ESPN. That's what the large meeting that Bob Iger had in February. He stated.
So that is at ESPN or is that Disney total?
I think, to be fair to your point, it's Disney total, but still, like obviously there are going to be people being let go from ESPN.
Do you think it's mascots only, or do you think it's people wear the costumes, or maybe they talked once and lost the gig? Is that what happened, do you think?
They're all going to disappear instantaneously like the Rapture at the theme parks. They're just going to dissolve.
With cord cutting at high levels, cable cutting, I don't know about this stuff. I mean, but, they've got their app they're trying to push, so maybe that's where he'll find his home and he'll be able to swear on that. I don't know, because that's obviously not close to broadcast, so I don't know.
Actually, that does tie into it is, it's still somewhat lucrative for ESPN, but they are really looking into being just direct to consumer. So that maybe is the play down the road. Maybe he has to clean it up for maybe a year or two, and then he can go full expletive maybe 2 to 3 years down the road. But still, that still seems weird. You're going to take it away and then give it back? I don't know.
That's the crystal ball look down the road. Okay, the Preakness. Did you watch it? National treasure, Bob Baffert's horse. He's back in only a 7-horse field. Wins the Preakness. And, Bob looked as good as ever with that dashing haircut. Lugs, the Preakness.
I actually didn't. What I saw from the Preakness was Bob crying after his horse having a meltdown.
Yeah, that's sad, actually.
Had to be put down.
Yeah.
that's all I saw. The Preakness has never really interested me. I got to be honest. Once you're past the Derby, I'm kind of out of it unless there's just this crazy horse that's going for the Triple Crown. I think they had themselves one of those years where the Brand X horses were there. They didn't have really great horses.
And
So I don't know. I mean, it's just sad when you see those horses put down. And apparently Churchill Downs is up to 9 horses that have been
this meet. Yep.
euthanized.
And only Mage, the Kentucky Derby winner, went from the Derby to the Preakness. And you're right, the Preakness doesn't have that panache. We all have heard stories about the tracks falling apart. T-Dog, what'd you think? Is it 7-horse field is really what throws me, because as a bettor, you really can't get good odds on much of anything.
I thought it. I thought as always. I know I love giving credit to it. I do have to say that the presentation was exceptional.
Sure.
But kind of like what you said, it was very odd seeing such a thin amount of horses running the track, and there just wasn't as much excitement. With the Kentucky Derby, Mage came from so far back.
And 20 horses, man, that's impressive to look at.
Agreed.
7, you're like, what?
Yeah, where National Treasure it essentially got the lead early and then has never looked back.
Didn't have to
the whole time. So, and the unfortunate thing, it looked like Mage was making, at that last turn, it was trying to make, and unfortunately, it looked like the horse tried to go too far inside, and it got behind, the 2 horses in front of them, and then it lost any juice it had. So, we were denied a shot at a Triple Crown, but and obviously the Bob Baffert thing, I don't follow horse racing enough, but it's just weird to me that he got suspended for a full year from the whole Triple Crown, but then Pimlico and Belmont are like, all right, you served out your year. But I don't know. Do you all have better insight into why Churchill just is not letting it go?
I don't understand it, because he is your lead trainer at this point.
Yeah, he's money.
Yeah, he's he's a guy people flock to. They bet on his horses. He's a good personality for TV. I don't know. Good question. And also
he's obviously hacked off somebody at Churchill.
Yes.
But nobody will fess up to anything at this point.
Maybe he did something wrong with like Michael Jordan's shoes or something at the Derby one year. I don't know. Hey, and NBC also loses the Triple Crown, gentlemen. For the first time in a long time, the Belmont Stakes will be on Fox Sports. That was announced even by Mike Tirico. So that's a very interesting move. The New York Racing Association jumped ship to do its own contract, a 9-year deal with Fox. What do you think of that?
Well, Fox will, they'll do 3,000 cameras. I don't know who their horse experts are going to be and their on-air talent, but they'll cover it well. I've just never seen anything from the Belmont that looked like it just doesn't look inviting. It looks like the horses are 8 miles out there from the stands, and I guess the only time I ever watched any of the Belmont is watching the old reruns of Secretariat. And essentially, everybody else was back over across the river somewhere, and he was winning by 31 lengths. Other than that, I've never really paid any attention to Belmont.
What about you, T-Dog? You excited about that, or Fox, just another horse race?
I just find it odd because chances are numerous times it feels weird splitting it up. Obviously, I understand from maybe the business reason is you can get people bidding on all these different races so that maybe you can get more money out of it. I get from that side. From the TV perspective, let's say you have like a horse that can win the Triple Crown. Do you want to carry the first two and then not have the thing to finish it off? And then vice versa. Do you really, like in this year, do you really care about the Belmont when there's no horse that has a chance to get the Triple Crown? I think the interest wanes. Like no one really cares.
Well, and for the past 20 years, we've all known to go to NBC for race 1, 2, and 3. And they've done a heck of a job and ramped it up, we have to all admit, much better than ABC did back in the day. But that's also the development of the technology, cameras, and everything else, and just the commitment from NBC because they knew they'd have it. I agree with you. It's going to be a little bit harder to find if you're going to be jumping around the universe.
I just hope Gus Johnson. I know you usually go to play-by-play at the track. I would like Gus Johnson to call yeah. You want to talk about excitement?
Yeah. Lugs, who do you want to hear call it for Fox? Joe Buck's no longer over there, so we can't. Joe Davis, Kevin Burkhardt. Oh, Tom Brady's in the fold pretty soon, isn't he?
Yeah, they're paying him enough.
Yeah, he could do that. It's just like Fox. They're announcing. Well, most of the networks now, they've sort of flipped all of their announcers around. It's like there's nobody in particular that you can grab onto. So at this point, I got no wish one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Okay, Lugs, I got one for you. The NFL is a ways off, but did you know this? We're just a little ways away from the opening kickoff of the Canadian Football League. The Calgary Stampeders host the BC Lions Thursday, June 8th in historic McMahon Stadium. Lugs, who do you like in this one? Have you thought about it? BC Lions, Calgary Stampeders?
I just like the Stampeders. It just sounds like that sounds like a rock group from the 70s or something.
Has a good beat. You could dance to it.
Yeah, so now, and where would one find this? Is this on some sort of cable system somewhere? Is it on the Molson Ale cable system?
I believe this is on the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company. But I want to point this out that the Winnipeg, and T-Dog's back. He had another call from Pat McAfee.
Yeah, I did.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are actually favored to hoist this year's Grey Cup. T-Dog, the Calgary Stampeders host the BC Lions Thursday, June 8th, as the kickoff of the CFL. So just pointing that out, if we're missing some football, we can probably find this on the, as Lugs pointed out, the Molson Golden Ale channel, perhaps.
I would, you know what? Every year, I don't know if you'll fall for the same thing. Every year, like I get maybe kind of like hungry. I mean, I guess with the USFL and XFL, it's died off a little bit.
Yeah.
I usually get kind of like football hungry, and I see the CFL, and I try it, and I get through like a half. It's like, no, this is not for me.
The field's too wide.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
You know what? I think it is like, you know, maybe in time this will happen to us. They talk about parallel dimensions actually existing and whatnot. Maybe in time someone will be able to break the membrane between different parallel dimensions and stuff. It feels like that came from a parallel dimension. Or maybe I came from a parallel dimension. When I watch this, they're like, this is football. It's like, this doesn't feel like football at all. It has a lot of the same aesthetics and whatnot, but it doesn't feel – a guy can just run before the snap, you know,
in motion, right.
Yeah. Not even just sideways. And you know,
Doesn't
American
matter.
football, you can. In CFL, you could run forward.
Three downs and out, you know, 2 downs and out, whatever.
Which seems like they'd want more scoring. It seems like you want 5 downs, right? You're taking away another, like, actual down.
20-yard end zones, midfield stripe, 2 50-yard lines. I get confused just watching the damn thing.
You know, and I know they used to be in American football, the extra point used to be in the front. That's still in the front, right? In CFL,
Yeah,
am I wrong?
the goalpost is up front. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I don't know, guys. It's just when I watch it, I feel like, it's when people talk about like the Mandela effect. Like, did he die in prison? I remember him always being alive, but I understand that some people experience it. Am I experiencing a Mandela effect each time I'm watching the Hamilton Tiger Cats versus the the Argonauts? I mean, I don't know.
BC Lions, baby.
Whew.
Luds, it's kind of like I believe Elvis is living in Michigan.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he on the UP?
He's a Youper, don't you know? He's a Youper there. Yeah, there. You going up north there? Yeah, I'm going to go up to north. I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, what else tonight? Anything, gentlemen?
I'm done.
He's done. He's had his full.
We beat that one to death.
I'll just say this. This will be the last thing to whet our appetites before the NFL. Lamar Jackson says he absolutely believes his rushing attempts will be scaled back in Todd Monken's offense. Let's get excited.
Wow. That is awesome. We wait for Lamar's breaking news on that. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of Sports and Other Stuff, brought to you in part by Rose Auto Sales on Highway 51 North. If their sticker's not on the back of your car, you probably paid too much. Stop in and ask for our guy. He's there tonight.
Fish. And since this is the week that the Shakespeare of his generation was born, Fish is hosting a mini Woodstock to celebrate all things Bob Dylan, that is. This Saturday at 1 p.m., Fish will turn the mic over to all those nasal singers that Robert Allen Zimmerman from Hibbing, Minnesota has inspired. There will be a song naming contest. You can't just say like a Rolling Stone all the time. And other trivia for a man who never had time for such blather. That's this Saturday at 1 p.m. Make like a Rolling Stone and boogie on down.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
And that'll bring to a close this edition of Sports and Other Stuff. Wishing you good hunting, fishing, boating, and camping. So long till next time. Bye-bye.